Now we are considering environment. Uh, Human impact on environment. All plants and animals have an impact on their environment to a greater or lesser degree. The presence of a plant life on Earth is a reason why our atmosphere is so oxygen rich, but successful species live in balance with the environment that produced them. Mankind is unique in the range of habitat we have mastered, but there are concerns that population pressures, intensive agriculture, and industrial activities are threatening our environment both locally and globally. Here you can see Cairo, one of the world's fastest growing cities, with population of 1.5 million in 1947, swelled to 10 million by 2000. Here, urban and agricultural development dominate this Landsat view of California's San Joaquin Valley. Climate change. One of the biggest challenges facing mankind is the build up of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere as a result of the burning of fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas. Carbon dioxide is one of the greenhouse gases which keeps our atmosphere warm by trapping light from the sun as heat. Here you can see nighttime satellite view of Europe shows the areas of high energy use, cities, industrial centers, transport routes. When fossil fuels are burned, carbon is released from the Earth's rocks into the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide. Although there are mechanisms for excess carbon dioxide to be absorbed in the oceans or the biosphere as part of the natural carbon cycle, measurements over the last century indicate that the gas is accumulating in the atmosphere an extra 30% since the middle of the 19th century. The release of carbon dioxide seemed to be too fast for the natural carbon cycle to absorb. In the short term, the rise in average temperatures is likely global warming. It is reckoned that global average temperature rose by 1 Celsius over the 20th century, with 8 of the 10th warmest years on record occurring in 1980s and 1990s. Temperature increases, however, are not evenly spread. Climate models predict that any warming will be concentrated near the polar regions. The observed thinning of Arctic sea ice and discovery of a broad strength of open water at the North Pole in the summer 2000 may be among the first conclusive signs that global warming is happening. Declassified submarine records show Arctic sea ice is 40% thinner than it was 40 years ago, and the satellite images show that areas covered is shrinking by 4% per year. By 2050, there may be no ice left at the North Pole in summer. In the longer term, a warmer planet would lead to increased evaporation from the oceans, and more clouds might reflect more heat away, tending to stabilize the temperature. On the other hand, if the sea ice melt and the Antarctic ice shelves shrink, less heat would be reflected and the warming would accelerate. In any event, changes to climate pattern are expected. Extreme weather events could become more common. vegetation zones could shift, with the American grain belt likely to move north. Coastal areas would be liable to flooding as sea levels rises due to the thermal expansion of the ocean uh, water. Some climate models predict that the Gulf Stream in the North Atlantic could weaken or even fail, having a major impact on the climate of Western Europe. Here you can see wind farms such as this one in the northern Spain are one of the number of clean alternatives to fossil fuel for generating electricity. The leading industrial nations have agreed to reduce their output of carbon dioxide, but most are struggling to meet their targets. Increasing prosperity is increasing energy consumption at a faster rate than energy efficiency measures are reducing it. Non-greenhouse alternatives to fossil fuels such as wind, solar and wave power are being developed only very slowly. Nuclear power is declined due to safety concerns. With its ease of transport and storage, petroleum remains an attractive fuel for private and commercial motor vehicles. Ozone depletion. In 1979, an experimental American satellite recorded atmospheric ozone concentrations of Antarctica that were so low that the measurements were dismissed as an instrument error. Only when British scientists recorded similar levels using weather balloons were the satellite's measurements taken seriously. Atmospheric conditions of Antarctica conspire to destroy ozone in stratosphere 20 to 25 kilometers, 12 to 15 miles above the surface. In spring months, levels are usually 40% lower than the 1960s. On some days, ozone is too scarce to be detected at all. Here you can see stratospheric ozone concentration over Antarctica measured by the Nimbus 7 environmental satellite. Red represent high values, blue is low. The ozone layer is important because it shields us from sun's ultraviolet radiation, which is damaging to all forms of life. The situation observed over Antarctica is just an extreme example of global depletion of ozone caused by man-made chemicals such as chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, used in industrial processes and products such as aerosol sprays and refrigerator coolants. Once they escape into the atmosphere, they are extremely long-lived and have a strong effect on ozone. A single chlorine atom released by CFC molecule is able to destroy 100,000 ozone molecules. Although CFC production has been priced out in the leading industrial nations, the CFCs already released will persist for most of this century. Prolonged exposure to ultraviolet leads to increased incidence of skin cancer and eye cataracts. 800,000 additional cancer deaths are estimated to result from damage to ozone layer. Acid rain. Acidification has damaged natural ecosystems from the lakes and streams of southern Norway, where 80% are dead or nearly devoid of fish life, to the Waldsterben tree death of the German forests. Great buildings are slowly dissolving from Cologne Cathedral and the Parthenon of Athens to India's Taj Mahal. Acidic rain results when sulfur and nitrogen compounds are emitted from the burning of fossil fuels such as coal and oil. Dry particles of sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, sulfate, and nitrate settle on sites within 300 kilometers of the pollution source. More widely dispersed pollutant combined with water vapor, sunlight, and oxygen in the atmosphere to create a mix of sulfuric and nitric acid, which can travel over 1000 kilometers, 625 miles before returning to Earth as acid rain, hail, snow, sleet, or fog. In industrialized regions, over 90% of the atmospheric sulfur is from man-made emissions. Particularly high sulfur levels are found in some types of coal burnt in power stations. Much of the nitrogen dioxide is from motor car exhaust and poses as direct threat to human health, penetrating the lining of the lungs and causing breathing difficulties. Deforestation. The Europe lost most of its forest cover to agriculture throughout the Middle Ages. Centuries later, the forest of eastern North America followed as the land was settled for Europeans. Today, tropical rainforests are being lost at an even more rapid rate as trees are felled for hardwood to provide land for commercial or subsistence farming, or to make way for access roads, mining operations, and dams. This loss is more disastrous than it was in the temperate regions due to the ecological complexity of the tropical forests. Here you can see this airborne image shows smoke from the forest clearance near Culaba, Mato Grosso, Brazil. Here you can see the sediment plumes off the coast of Borneo show where deforestation has led to soil erosion. A tropical rainforest acts as a huge moisture store and modifies the local climate. Once stripped of tree cover, thin forest soils are easily eroded and stream flow becomes more erratic. Increased flooding can produce siltation problems downstream. Forest soils are often quite poor, leading to farmers moving to clear adjacent forest areas after only a few years. Here you can see Madagascar has lost 90% of its original forest cover, leaving only a thin line of forest along the eastern highlands. Here Landsat image of part of Rondônia, Brazil shows the forest areas cleared between 1975 left and 1992 right. The areas is about 45 kilometers, 28 miles across. Slash and burn forest clearance on the island of Borneo has produced a huge problems in recent years, as the monsoon rains which were relied on to quench the fires have have been late arriving. The blazing forest even triggered fires in underlying peat deposits so that the very earth was alight. Smoke spread hundreds of kilometers, miles to Malaysia and Sumatra and hung over the area for several months in 1997. The airliner crashed due to poor visibility, killing 234, and several ships collided in the Strait of Malacca. 20 million people sought treatment for respiratory and other illnesses. Here you can see weather satellite image shows the smoke pall which enveloped southeast Borneo in 1997. Smoke appeared yellow. It's yellow. Yep. Yellow in contrast to the white clouds. Globally, the rainforests are significant absorbers of the greenhouse gas carbon dioxide, which is released when they are burnt. Another greenhouse gas, methane, is produced in many cleared areas as a byproduct of cattle ranching in South America and wet rice cultivation in Asia. A tropical rainforest also represent plants richest ecosystem with a unique diversity of animal and plant life. Even if trees are cleared from any small area or only selected trees are removed, other species in adjacent areas can be badly affected. Estimates are the habitat destruction causes loss of 50 to 100 species a day, from 5 to 30 million species throughout thought to exist. Water resources. As populations grow, an increasing strain is put to the water resources of an area. People need water for drinking and sanitation, for agriculture and industrial purposes. Here you can see the much of the territory of the Netherlands is land reclaimed from North Sea. These Landsat images show South Flevoland partially reclaimed in 1973, 33 left here, and 1987 right. In the Southern California, demands of the growing city of Los Angeles and the need for irrigation water led to gradual draining of Owens Lake, which is now the largest large salt flat. The level of Mono Lake further north dropped 15 meters, 41 feet, before controls were imposed on extraction in 1991. To the south, Salton Sea is Impartial Valley is the result of an accidental release of water from irrigation channel. Here you can see Owens Lake, 30 kilometers, 18.75 miles long by 16 kilometers, 10 miles wide. In 1905 was drained to provide fresh water for the city of Los Angeles, 380 miles away. The waters of the Colorado River feed large-scale irrigation in Imperial Valley in the arid southwestern USA. In the Middle East, for the fossil groundwater replenished list, by the total today's rainfall patterns is being drained to irrigate crops in Saudi Arabia. In Central Asia, the Aral Sea covers less than 40% of its original area due to the diversion of its inflowing rivers for irrigation. High salt levels have killed off fish stocks, and local climate has become much drier. Salty dust storms carrying fertilizers and pesticides have crippled the health of a local population. Here you can see the shrinking of Aral Sea viewed by satellite in 1985, and left here 1920 to 1992 here, right? Hydroelectric power is an alternative option in many countries, but its potential is concentrated in the wilderness areas where the natural environment may suffer from the development. Indigenous populations in Quebec, Turkey, and Malaysia have all had their homes and way of life threatened by large-scale dam projects in recent years. In China, flooding has been a huge problem along the Yangtze River, with hundreds of thousands of people killed over the centuries. Today, a huge dam is being built to control the river's flow by creating 370-mile, 592 kilometers long lake. Project will save lives, easy transport, and stimulate the economy, but in the process 2 million people will be displaced, and the scenic 3 Georges stretch of the river will be flooded, and major archaeological and cultural site will be lost. Industrial waste. Modern industry and agriculture struggles to contain its waste products. Poisonous waste such as lead from petrol have been known about for decades, but often the only solution considered has been to disperse and dilute the pollutants which are expected to disperse, however, are often concentrated by environmental and biological factors. Los Angeles, Mexico City, and Athens have a huge problem with smoke trapped over the city by surrounding mountains. Industrial and vehicle emissions produce nitrogen dioxide and ozone, both highly damaging to the respiratory system. In some countries, the introduction of catalytic converters and lead-free petrol had been effective, lowering poisonous emissions overall, even when traffic levels are increasing. Here you can see Los Angeles is surrounded by the mountains to the north, northwest, and east, which trap air over the city when there is a sea breeze from the west. Here you can see oil slicks occur as a result of extraction and transport activities. This radar image shows where the surface of the sea has been smoothed by leaks from oil production platforms 150 kilometers 94 miles west of Bombay. Modern farming relies heavily on fertilizers, but the Nitrates in fertilizers are easily dissolved and washed into rivers. Here the river plants are over fertilized and other decomposing remains remove oxygen from the water, a process called eutrophication, which kills off animals' life. Phosphates used in detergents can have same effects. The North Sea and Adriatic coastal have both seen red tides after algal blooms, which may be triggered by river and sewage water from adjacent land areas. Radioactive waste are among the most poisonous substances known, some remaining dangerous for thousands of years. Accidents at nuclear power plants have resulted in the release of radioactive gases, liquids, and particles into local environment. The worst such accident was at the Chernobyl power station in Ukraine, 1986. Here, an explosion blew off the roof of the nuclear reactor and resulted in dispersal of radioactive material across the northern Europe. Difficulty of containing and disposing of radioactive waste has proved to be insurmountable problem for the nuclear industry in some of the most advanced nations. Here you can see warfare took a new twist in 1991 when occupying Iraqi forces set Kuwait's oil wells alight. The smoke dominated the skies of the region for several months, polluting the air, blocking out sun and damaging the region's harvests. Here the Landsat view of the nuclear plant at Chernobyl, Ukraine. 3 days after it exploded in April 1986. At the north end of its 10 kilometer long, 6.25 miles cooling pond, the temperature hotspot red dot shows the burning reactor is still at 1000 degrees Celsius.